Hello and welcome to another modelling video. Today we're going to be covering a more simpler and beginner friendly technique, dry brushing. You might remember some older videos I've covered various forms of weathering and pigment weathering where you capture extra raised details to add extra definition to a kit when it has a fairly flat surface. And particularly when you got a 2D surface with a flat or camouflage color scheme, it doesn't look too interesting and you want it to pop out more. And if you don't have the skill, tools, equipment or money for expensive weathering pigments, we're going to show you how to get the same effect with just paint. We will be using acrylics since the bulk of the paintwork on this kit was acrylic paint. Enamels work very well with dry brushing, but not so much lacquers. You'll need a range of well kept brushes, a tip, a larger brush and a flathead. And your general technique with dry brushing is to get a little paint on your brush and remove most of the excess paint, and in a dry manner scratch it or scrape it across some detail. The more subtle the better. Too heavy and it's not too cool. Application to a Gundam or mecha kit, you'll notice hands or mechanical detail on a backpack, which would be very easy and ideal to do, or the inner part of master grades, which would be amazing and very easy to do. Outer surfaces are a bit more tricky. That's when we tend to use pigments. Color choice is extremely important. Sometimes you want metal chipping, so you'll use a silver, but 99% of the time beginners normally go overboard. Though most of the time mud earth colours look quite effective, or lighter versions of what you've actually used on the kit. Let's get straight into it. Just a before and after comparison. The top tank tracks is just painted black, and the bottom one is what was dry brushed and had that extra detail. And you can see that even though it's very subtle and not too noticeable, the bottom one just stands out that little more and looks a tad more realistic. Also, don't forget, since your brush is going to be dry half the time, once the paint starts drying hard on your brush, it's going to lose its flexibility and will not be able to do its job. So a lot more often than you normally would while hand painting, you're going to have to clean your brush in thinner or water, whatever you do. Probably about 3 times more than you usually do to keep it flexible and a very neat job. Now, looking very close to this kit, we saw a lot of nice detail here. But when you pull back, you don't see anything, just a very flat camouflage effect. I'm going to take a lighter colour and use a larger brush to catch the larger pieces and hit those small rivets with a finer brush. Now we're going to highlight all these rivets and edges using a lighter colour than the absolute lightest, and let's give it a go. So again, just a little paint on the brush till it's not moving anymore, and very lightly whisker. If you put too much, you can always wipe away and just cover any edges, rivets, whatnot. So once you get the heavier detail, start going for the lighter detail, your rivets. And it's starting to come through. Again, with a little more building up, the top piece is the weathered bit, where you can just see a little more detail and it just pops out and becomes a little more lively than the bottom one, which is completely flat. And once we give it a wash and possibly a tiny bit of pastel weathering, she's going to be absolutely Good. So this is the subtleness you'd like to go for. Maybe you want it a bit heavier, maybe you want it a bit lighter, but this is the absolute basic you can go without going too overboard. Once dry, and you give it a bit of a sludge wash or panel line wash, this is the sort of thing you're trying to go for. So that looks a little more lively. It pops a bit more. You're able to see the little rivets. And this is just something to play around with, experiment with colours, and try to go for whatever look you're after. If it's a weathered look, a fresh out of the factory look, a slightly worn, or even just a shadow look on something that's brand spanking new. It just gives your life a little more extra life. I hope this was of some help. Thank you for watching, and until next time.